Having a conversation with Supervisor Matt Dorsey, you've never shied away from tough questions. I think above and beyond any question I could ask about this tragedy could be echoed from some of the people who are tweeting back at you. I wanted to read you some of these tweets. Yeah. This is awful news, and my heart goes out to the Lee family, but your posts and our city officials have instilled zero confidence. I know countless people, including myself, that have been victims of San Francisco crime. No action taken. The city turns a blind eye and things only get worse. That's one tweet. Then another person, this is tragic. San Francisco needs to do more to ensure this doesn't happen again. This person lives off of Harrison, nearby. They say they struggle with violent crime every day, people suffering on the streets. The city, they say, needs to call on the feds to rebuild the public's confidence. So aside from the fact that this is a human tragedy, this also represents the fact that we've lost somebody who came here, who profited, who led the way, created technologies. And we also have a loss that's now communicated and reverberated around the country that San Francisco is fundamentally not safe. What do you say to that?
I would say the concerns are valid, but I would also say that just on a human level, I want to start by saying that my heart does go out to Mr. Lee's family and friends and loved ones and colleagues for the loss. I understand that this is something that is deeply unsettling at a time when the city is struggling to come back from COVID and an economic downturn. And there's a lot of public safety challenges that the city is facing. What I have said to the residents I represent in District 6, where this homicide happened, is I didn't seek this role despite these challenges. It was precisely because of these challenges that I sought this role.
Your website says fighting for a safer San Francisco, but how do you do it when these things happen over and over again? And we're hearing from your constituents saying, I feel like all the time the city turns a blind eye.
One of the things that has been very frustrating for me in my many years of public service in San Francisco, going back to my first job out of college was working for the district attorney. San Francisco has been denied the benefits of a fully staffed police department for nearly 30 years. We had a charter amendment that voters enacted in 1994 to have 1,971 police officers. In the 24 years that that charter amendment existed, we only hit that number twice, and only for a short number of days. Right now, we are understaffed by close to 500 officers. There's another 400 and change that are ready to retire. So there are some real safety challenges for which I think City Hall deserves blame, and we do have to do
Who at City Hall?
I think we use successive generations of the Board of Supervisors. I would say that Mayor Breed and I are on the same page on doing our part to fight for police staffing. I think that was a contentious issue a couple of weeks ago with a budget supplemental to have more funding for overtime. But the reality is we shouldn't be in a situation where we need overtime just to keep our heads above water with the basics of police staffing.
Wanted to give you some of the questions that I communicated to police so far, in fairness to them, and I know they're having a busy day. They have much bigger fish to fry than to answer my questions, but I wanted to give you these questions because I wanted to see if you know the answers to any of these. At the time of the stabbing, how many officers were on duty in that area? Do you know the answer?
I don't know that, but I do know that the Southern is a fairly busy station. This is a downtown area. With a homicide, it is hard to know if this is something that's attributable to patrol or lack thereof. This isn't an area where there is the kind of overt drug scenes or criminal behavior that you might see in other parts of the city. That said, this is a city that has violent crime problems. I would say San Francisco doesn't have the level of violent crimes, doesn't have the level of homicides that many other major American cities have.
Mr. Lee had just moved to Miami, also characterized nationally as being a violent city.
Yeah, you're correct.
So tell me this, to the conference goer who's looking at San Francisco thinking, should I book there? Are my people safe there? What is your message to them?
What my message is that San Francisco isn't alone in being a major city that is struggling with police staffing. I think we're going to be doing our part. It is going to be absolutely a top priority for me on the Board of Supervisors to make sure that we are doing our part to get to a fully staffed police department. What I would say is, leaving aside the horrible tragedies that we're seeing, that we saw a couple of days ago, statistically, San Francisco is not the worst among the major American cities for which we are competing with conventions. But that, I understand,
Right.
is cold comfort to someone who just lost a friend, a colleague, a loved one, a family member.
Yeah, I would say the family of Mr. Lee would say that doesn't work for us. I think they would also
Yeah.
wonder if it didn't work since the 70s when those officers, 1,000+ officers that you mentioned, how are you going to get it done today, and by when can you get it done? Get more boots on the ground, more officers in these areas.
Yeah. So I have a plan that I am talking to my colleagues and the mayor about. I think we have a roadmap to get to full staffing within 5 years. I think we can do it. San Francisco is a city that is not without resources. We are a $14 billion enterprise. We can be competing better for law enforcement personnel than we are competing. There are cities right now that are out competing San Francisco, including 4 in the Bay Area that pay a higher recruiting bonus and a higher starting salary than San Francisco does.
Alameda made headlines yesterday,
yeah,
$75,000.
Yep, yeah. So San Francisco's got to put some skin in the game here. This is something that is hurting the bottom line of the city with, when you talk about the convention business that we're not getting. When you're talking about people who don't want to come back to, as commuters
Right.
who may be living in other parts of the Bay Area. That business downtown supports local businesses. It supports, entry-level jobs. This is really part of the San Francisco economy, and it disproportionately represents the neighborhood I represent in District 6, which is downtown, south of Market, South Beach. This is areas where I want to make sure that we have vibrant tourism and commuters coming to work.
Right.
It supports a more vibrant city.
But what I don't hear from you is a resounding confidence that San Francisco is safe for visitors, for people to live here, for people to do business here, for people to visit. I don't hear that confidence from you right now.
What I would say is that we have to take it seriously, that when people express concerns about their safety, they're not without a reasonable basis to have those concerns. And San Francisco, including city leaders, have to take those concerns more seriously, and we have got to do more to get to a fully staffed police department and to make sure that we are doing everything we can to make our city safer. The concerns that I hear, I'm not going to say that they're invalid, especially when we see this kind of a tragedy like we saw with this homicide in the neighborhood I represent. We have to do better. In the meantime, what I would say is that this is something that, to the extent people in Rincon Point and East Cut and South Beach may have access to video footage or surveillance or anything that they may have seen out of the ordinary on the early morning hours of April 4th, to please reach out to the police department. They have a 24-hour tip line. It's 415-575-4444. You can remain anonymous. It's probably more helpful if you don't, if you can talk to people, but this is an active investigation. I have been in touch with the Assistant Chief of Investigations. They're pursuing leads, but they're not ruling anything in or out. But if the more we can do as San Franciscans to support this investigation and bring this perpetrator to justice, the better.
And on the front end, making it safe for San Francisco. Thank you so much for always being willing to answer the tough questions.
Yeah.
I know people in office find it easier to release statements. You always come, you always sit here, and you always talk, and I appreciate it. I hope more of your peers will do that with us.
I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
so much for coming today.
Thanks.